What's up, everybody? I'm Blessed and Free. Welcome back to another episode of DOC TV. So if you're tuning in for the first time on this channel, I talk about crime, prison, jail, and the corruption that goes on in all of those. In today's episode, I'm going to be telling you a personal story that happened to me a long time ago, but it really has affected my life today with PTSD. And it was just a crazy experience. And the reason why I want to tell this story is because it's so easy when you're young to think you're invincible and think nothing can touch you and no one can fade you. But trust me when I tell you that, every dog has its day. So back when I was 18 years old, I was chilling with one of my homeboys, Kenny. We used to, just chill and always did shit together, went out, and he had a girl named Candace. Well, our boy Rob had been in prison the times that we were hanging out, but he was getting released from prison. So Rob came over to Kenny's house. We're all there. It's like 8 o'clock at night. It was kind of weird how it all went down. So when Rob got out and he came over, Candace was like, "Oh, I'll be right back. I got to take the trash out." She walks to the dumpster. They lived in like a duplex. And Rob was like, "Oh, I'll go with you." Looking back on it now, that was like a weird thing that had happened. And you'll find out later in the story why. So we were all, drinking, popping some Xanax, some footballs. And, Candace was like, "Man, let's go out to a bar." So we had went out to some local bars and shit was just like dead. So she's like, "Oh, I know this other bar. It's like, 20 miles up US Highway 19. So we're like, "All right, fuck it, run it." We're in the car. So we get to the bar and they're having this like tuxedo event. I don't know what exactly it was called, but everybody was like dressed up. So right when we get in the bar, we like get a couple pictures and we're going over towards the pool table. And like, I can tell something, like you could tell the vibe in the bar was like, cause we're like not in our town now, we're in another town. And I feel like the people that were in that bar were feeling some type of way about us being there. So we're playing pool, we're kicking it. My boy Kenny ran into a couple people he knew. And so 20 minutes goes by. And one of the kids that he had introduced Candace to as his fiance had came up to us, me and Kenny, later in the night. And he was like, "Hey man, didn't you just introduce that girl as your fiance?" And Kenny's like, "Yeah, why? What's up?" And he's like, "Because I seen your supposed fiance over there kissing your homeboy Rob." So Kenny's like, "What?" So I was like, "Nah, bro." And so me and Kenny walked over to Rob and we were like, "Yo man, you fucking kissing Candace?" And he's like, "Fuck no, who said that?" And Kenny's like, "Eddie did." Rob's like, "Where's he at?" And so Rob looking all over the bar for him, can't find him. So he goes to walk outside thinking he had left. So right when he goes out the front door, boom, he gets dropped. There was people outside the door waiting for him. So I looked at Kenny and Kenny looks to me and we're like, "Man, we're all in now." So we run over to the pool table, grab the pool sticks, we undo them and put two together in our hands. And we just walk out and instantly started fighting with, probably like 15, 20 people. Other people in the bar came out. We're literally running around, hit someone, and then just kept running through cars with like a line of people chasing us. And like every 2 seconds, turn back around, boom, hit one, and then keep running through the cars. So like I'm messed up, Kenny's messed up. The owner of the bar comes out and he like comes up behind me and grabs my shirt and he's like, "Yo, y'all need to get in your car and get out of here." So I run over to the car and I go to open the front door and it's locked. Rob's outside now. He got up from being dropped when he walked out of the bar and he's like, "Where are the keys? Where are the keys?" And I'm like, "Bro, you got the keys." And he's like, "Oh shit." So he gets in the driver's side of the car, starts the car. I couldn't open the front door, so I go to get in the back door. Candace sits next to me in the back seat, and Kenny sits on the other side of her on the driver's side. And all three of us are in the back seat. So we're like, "Go, go, go," because we knew like there's only like, really two of us that were actually doing something that night. And there was like 15, 20 of those people, and it was just going to be more once more people in the bar started coming out. So we pull on the main road, we're driving, doing like the speed limit, 50 or whatever. And I'm like, "Man, Kenny, you knocked that dude out." And he's like, "Yeah, bro, you got that one dude decent." So we're just like, vibing in the car and shit. And I just happened to like look behind me through the window and I saw a car getting closer to us, the headlights. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning. So I like reach up and hit Rob on his shoulder, and I'm like, bro, you need to go. Like, this shit ain't over. So he's like, nah, bro, we're straight driving. And I'm like, nah, bro, they're coming. So about, I don't know how long it was, maybe like 4 or 5, 6 seconds later, boom, the car that was coming up behind us with the headlights hit the back of the car that we were in and like jolted us forward. So about the time like we realized what was going on, they hit us and then they pulled up beside us and the windows rolled down and a gun came out of the window. So they literally dumped the whole clip into the car. Now, as they're doing this, I'm trying to climb up under the front seat of the car because all I heard was pew, pew, like bullets fucking going through the, like hitting the car, going through the car. And so I was just trying not to get killed that night. So I was trying to literally crawl up under the front passenger seat of the car, and Candace and Kenny were doing the same shit, like trying to get as low to the floor as we could. So the bullets stopped, and you know, I heard the car like, you know, hit its gas and take off. And so I get back up into the back seat, and when I did, I noticed bloods all over the car. Bloods all over me, the freaking headliner, the seats like drenched in blood. I'm looking, like feeling myself, making sure that I wasn't shot. And because the adrenaline was going nuts. And then I'm like asking Candace, I'm like, you good? You hit? And she's like, no, you hit. I'm like, nah. And then we looked at Kenny, did the same shit. And then we all kind of like focused our attention on Rob. And he's sitting there like this in the front seat, just laid back. And the car's still going because his foot is on the gas. So now we're like bump, 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 going off the road. And we see like some trees coming up. And we're still headed right towards the trees. So I like scoot over and Kenny scoots over into the middle and jumps up and kicks the car into park on the gear shifter. And we're just like, it goes and just stops. So I'm thinking the car that pulled up next to us is going to come back and off us because, you know, they don't know they got all of us or not. They don't know if they really got anybody for that matter, but I'm thinking, man, they're not going to want to leave no witnesses to anything. So I get out of the back seat of the car and I'm army crawling across the grass, like into this ditch that's on the side of the road. And like Kenny and Candace kind of did the same thing. They stayed more towards the car. I was like, fuck that, I'm out of there. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. It's dead silent. We're on this like, you know, not a busy road, no street lights. It's pitch black. And I realize the car's not coming back. So I get up and I run back to the car. We pull Rob out of the front seat of the car. He had been shot like 4 times in his side right here. And then when he was holding the steering wheel like this, he was shot in his wrist and it came out. So his like hand was like hanging by tendons, but he's still breathing. Like he's still somewhat conscious. He's getting ready to go into like, you know, unconsciousness. So we're talking to him and we're trying to like put our shirts on the bullet holes in his chest. And he just like, you could tell he was getting ready to fade out. So we're like over the top. He's laying on the ground. I'm like, man, don't you die on me. Kenny's like, Rob, don't die, bro. We got you. But Kenny's like, bro, we need to get to a house and call the cops. So I was like, all right. So none of us had a cell phone on us. Plus this was back in the day when, you know, it wasn't really like popping like that with the cell phones yet. So we're running up to these houses and we're knocking on the door, and like the first door we knocked on, no one came to the door. Then we ran down the street, and then the second door we knocked on, the lights turned on the porch, and they looked out of the window and we're all covered in blood. So they're like, you know, not one to open the door. And I'm like, you don't have to open the door. Just call the fucking cops. My friend's about to die. So we run back over to Rob, and by that time, he was dead. He didn't make it that night. And so the cops pull up and they're like, you know, wondering what the fuck's going on. And me telling you this story now, like it's more vivid to me now because after all of it happened, I heard like bits and pieces from Kenny and Candace. But that night, like when the cops showed up, I didn't really remember what the hell was going on. I was drunk. I was taking Xanax. So like I couldn't even like talk to the cops. Candace was totally annihilated. She couldn't really talk. And Kenny was like one of the only ones that were halfway sober. So they put us all in the back of a cop car. They take us down to the police station and they throw us all in a holding cell. They tried to interview like me and Candace, but I would just fall asleep in the interview because I was so messed up. So they put us back in the holding cell and Kenny goes and does his interview. And come to find out now, and this is what I didn't know then, but my boy Rob that was shot, he was in prison, and he was in prison with the kid that shot him. I said his first name. I'm not going to say his last name, and I'm not going to say anyone's last name for that matter. But so they had some beef. I don't know if it happened before prison and then when they were in prison together, or if it was just when they were in prison together, they had like some falling out. So that night, I don't know if Rob kissed Candace. It looked kind of like he did, because when we saw them, like how he went to the dumpster with her when we were at the house, and then like this kid saying that. So I don't really know what happened, so I'm really not going to speak on what I think happened because I don't know. Kenny knew Eddie, this kid that did the shooting. And when we were at the bar, that's who he introduced his fiance to. And that's who later came over 20 minutes later and said, yo, your boy's kissing your girl. So he's in the interview room with the cops. Me and Candace are in the cell. Like 24 hours goes by and I'm finally starting to come like, you know, sane in my head from not being drunk and barred out and shit. So we're in the cell and we're all just sitting there and I'm like, bro, what are we sitting in here for? Like, we didn't even do anything. And Candace is like, Josh, just chill, man. I'm like, nah, man, screw that. So I got up and started bucking and kicking the door, and finally a detective came over and I'm like, bro, what are we doing in here? Like, we gonna go home or what? And he's like, you don't want to help us catch your friend's murderer? And I was like, bro, I don't even know who the kid is. So he's like, well, that's not what your boy said. And I'm like, bro, I don't even know what you're talking about. Like, I never had met this kid in my life. The only people I knew were Rob, Kenny, and Candace. So they haven't fed us. They haven't gave us anything to drink. So I'm just like, bro, you at least can give us something to eat or some food and something to drink. Like, we've been here a day. So I guess he had sent like one of the women that worked in the police station to Publix, and she got us a bunch of Publix subs. So they finally take us out of the cell. They bring us in like the room where all the officers that work there take their lunch and dinners at. So we're eating the subs, and the whole time I'm in here in the police station, I'm on probation. And I had like an eighth of weed on me that we were going to smoke that night after we left the bar. So that's in my sock. And the whole time we're there, Kenny's like, bro, you need to flush that shit. And I'm like, nah, bro, we're going to smoke us a blunt when we get out of here. I'm not flushing shit. So that's just like the mind state that I was in then. Like, I just literally thought I was invincible. And it wasn't until this night that I realized like anybody's touchable. No matter how big or bad you think you are, there's always someone bigger or badder. And if they're not, there's always can be a gun in play. And it doesn't matter how good your fight game is, your talk game, any of that shit. When someone pulls a gun and you don't have a strap on you, like, you already know, man. I don't need to go into detail, but this is the detail of what happens when somebody uses a gun and takes shit to a whole nother level. So I guess from Kenny, they had found out who this kid Eddie was. I guess they go to his house. They search his house. He's not in there. They hear him in the attic. So boom, they go up, they get him out of the attic, and they arrest him. Now, they bring him to the jail, and when he gets to jail, he gets on the jail phone, and everybody knows it's been to jail. Those phones are tapped. They're listening to your conversations. In the car with him that night, when all this went down, when Rob walked out of the front door, one of his homeboys knocked him out at the door. The whole time, this kid, Eddie's sitting in his car, loading his gun up, waiting for us to leave the parking lot. He was in the car in the passenger seat, and his homeboy was in the driver's seat. And they had, I think, like 2 chicks with them. So when he gets to the jail, he calls his homeboy and said, yo, the gun's here. This is here. Go throw it in the river or the Gulf, I think it was. And so that dude tells his girl, they drive down to wherever they told him to throw it. I don't know exactly where it was because I was in the police station at this time. But the cops listened to his phone call and went to that location. So when they pulled up, boom, they arrested him and charged him with conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. And then they got 3 counts of attempted murder on me, Candace, and Kenny. So they go to jail. They end up flipping on Eddie and telling on him for, you know, everything that had happened. The reason why I'm telling you this whole story is because it's just so easy one night to be like, you know, hey man, let's go over here. And you go over there and you think everything's sweet. And the next thing you know, bro, your friend's been shot 8 times and you almost died. You just really got to be careful who you're surrounding yourself with and where you're going. I mean, we were out at like 1 o'clock in the morning. Now that I'm older, my parents always used to tell me nothing goes on at 11 o'clock at night that's good. And they weren't even lying, because it seems like every time I get into some shit, it's like midnight or later. And, you know, at that time when all that shit went on, like my friend was murdered. I'm almost shot. 2 of my friends are almost shot. Like, we literally left the police station and went to Busch Gardens the next day. Like, I didn't comprehend what was going on at that point in my life. Like, how close I was to almost being killed. And, you know, other shit had went on in my life similar to this, not as crazy as this. But now, like, you know, as the years went on from when this happened, I really realized that God must have a bigger plan for me, because there's so many times with situations like this, or car accidents, or fighting, or that like I could be dead and I'm not. And you know what that does to me now is it makes me grateful just to be alive. That's why I do this channel, man, because I'm sure there's somebody out there young watching this that has either been in that type of situation or a situation similar to that, where they're like, you know what? Like, damn, I could have been gone too. And it really just puts it all into perspective. And that's why I wanted to share this story. If you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up. And if you're new, hit that subscribe button and turn your post notifications on all. So every time I drop an episode, you can hear it first. And with that, it's DOC TV, and I'm out.